717-916-5189. I know somebody out there has to have an opinion. And if you have an opinion on that lead-up music we used today, I'd love to hear that as well. I don't know if anybody's getting any feedback or not. I'm getting a little feedback in my my headset, and I'm trying to figure out if that is show-wide or just affecting me. So if one of you guys wants to post on Facebook, I'd appreciate to know whether you guys are hearing the static or if that's just my headset tonight. Sometimes it's hard to tell with these technical setups what's actually going on. 717-916-5189. And again, I invite you to call in and tell me what you have to say. So, anywho, I guess the other thing I want to update you on is, of course, Ebola. That's not getting any better. I don't know if it's getting any worse. So, if anything, the newest American is coming back to the National Institute of Health because of it. And he will, in fact, be hospitalized down in Maryland now. So now, if you're wondering how close you live to the closest potential Ebola case, I don't believe it's been indicated that this person, in fact, has Ebola yet. Okay, you guys are getting the feedback. All right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to play a little interlude here while I get this feedback issue solved. So hold on one second here. And let's see what. So maybe you guys will like. Here's some really like stoner music. We'll play that for a minute. Better. All right, I don't know. I think I solved the feedback issue, so enough with the stoner music or whatever it was. 717-916-5189 if you want to get here live on the air. Okay, what I was trying to tell you about was this PA PornoGate, and the issue is, to me, and the biggest issue to me, is that these folks ran this office for 20 years plus, the Republicans. And remember, I'm a registered Republican. And now everybody's going, well, Kane's just doing this. She's not outing any Democrats. Hey, dummies, okay? Yeah, you. A couple of you have posted on my Facebook. Did you not know that until Kane there was no Democrats in there? And did you not know that Democrats don't appoint Republicans and vice versa? Republicans don't appoint Democrats. So as a result, the office has been primarily run and staffed completely with Republicans at the high political levels. As for office drones and the typical, low-end folks, well, sure, your party affiliation isn't absolutely important. Although some state workers will tell you what party you're affiliated with does matter, and you'll notice that some state workers actually change their political affiliation based upon who's going to be running the government at the moment, because preferences go to political cronies. So even to bit players, just being in the right party or giving money to the right party is what you need to do to make sure you maintain your job security. So with that in mind, you have to keep in mind that Kane doesn't really have any Democrats on these email lists because for the most part, they were all crony Republican appointees. That's why they've all moved on to other crony appointments. right? When Corbett left office from the Attorney General's office and became governor, one of them got appointed to the DEP, and another one got appointed to the Board of Probation and Parole, or Pardons, or whatever it is. And, another one got appointed to this other agency. Another one's working for his campaign. Okay, kids? So it's not a Republican-Democrat phenomenon. This was not Kane. Now, the timing. Let's talk about the timing. They've known about these for months and months and months and wanted to release them sooner, arguably, but a grand jury judge said no, although the AG's office continued to say they didn't really want to release them. After the grand jury judge gave way a week ago, she still complained, except every major press outlet was litigating the issue. So they decided to go ahead and make a selective release. We know that Frank Fina, who I went up against in the Sandusky trial, his name has been bantied about as somebody in the paper suggesting his name could have been on that list, but he filed some kind of action, some kind of gag order. And it's not clear whether that was granted or not, because all Kane could say is that there were certain names that weren't included because of certain legal reasons, either grand jury reasons or maybe Fina's gag order, because a lot of people are saying that he was on these email distribution lists, and I don't know that for a fact. What I thought was also interesting is the Supreme Court, the Justice Castile, has come out and said, hey, I want the names of all the judges who were receiving these and sharing these. And, of course, some of my crazy Republican friends are going, well, Carl, they could have just been in their spam boxes. I'm like, well, for many of them, actually, they show they sent or forwarded the emails, okay? When you send or forward something, you don't do that from your spam box, and it's not in your spam box. I know it's hard for some people to believe that their dear, dear conservative Republican friends were looking at, stupid pornos. But, hey, I think we've all done it. The question would be looking at it on private email and also the content. And so the ones that are offensive to me are the ones where they show like a secretary, using all your resources or something with a girl having anal sex, and another one, some reference to, your only job is to keep your boss happy, showing some secretary blowing a guy. That's the old boy misogynistic stuff that people sort of want to give a free pass to, and they go, oh, well, boys will be boys. And so you can't be part of the email loop, and you can't be one of the boys being boys if you're a woman, because you're supposed to be apparently filleting the attorney generals, deputy attorney generals, and investigators who are exchanging these things. So, by the way, the state police commissioner received an inordinate number of these things, but he didn't forward any. So we don't know. We also don't know the forensics of who opened and looked at, et cetera, et cetera. And, of course, somebody else, I heard them go, oh, well, they can't find the IRS's emails. That's really convenient, but they can find these. Well, what happened was, if you remember, when Tom Corbett left, the new interim attorney general, who was left behind for 6 months behind him before he appointed a woman to take over the office, he started a new policy and said they were going to delete any emails that were older than 6 months. So when he left office, all of Corbett's emails and all of Corbett's deputies, attorney general's emails were gone, just gone, off into outer space or wherever emails go when the government deletes them. And then when Kane was doing this investigation, about 3/4 of the way in, they realized that actually they were backed up somewhere. And so they went and they got them and to look into the Sandusky case. And she issued a report somewhat critical of Corbett, but saying he didn't drag his feet for political purposes. But in the course of doing this, they discovered all these horrendous emails internal to their system. And there's a lot of active employees who engaged in this. And, of course, they have union contracts and they have certain privileges as current employees. That means that they can't just drop their names into public record until it's been worked out. So some of those names are yet to come. I'll be curious to see if there are any additional state actors on it. There may be some Democrats. I'll be curious to find out if there are outside the AG's office. And I know that many of the AGs communicate directly and frequently with many local prosecutors and elected district attorneys around the state. It'll be curious to see if any of them were copied on these emails. I can tell you right now a lot of house cleaning is going on. I'll bet in a lot of county prosecutorial offices, and I'll bet in a lot of other areas of the state, people are suddenly cleaning up emails and trying to go, oh, I was never part of those chains. I didn't forward any of that stuff. And then the question becomes, how come a guy at the Department of Corrections who sends one email with a picture of a nude woman and it gets fired can so easily be caught, but the AG's office wasn't? Well, the AG's office, like many law enforcement agencies will simply claim that their email can't be regulated as regular because it's privileged law enforcement material, and they need secrecy because there's grand jury material on that email. They need autonomy because there's grand jury material on that email, and they need privilege because there's secret grand jury material on that email. So we can't have some tech department simply floating around. So we can't have the general services department, the regular tech guy digging around in there. We have to be self-regulated. And here's the point. The IT department at the Attorney General's office obviously wasn't flagging or catching any of this stuff, which is very easily done, by the way. Anybody out there who wants to call in and ever does any kind of administration for network administration or has ever done email filters and things like that would and I'd love to hear from one of you, 717-916-5189. I'm sure you could explain how easy it is, and I know from having actually administered an Exchange server once or twice that there are settings I can go in there, and if your email has a certain word in it, like boob, it gets flagged and copied to somebody, or it gets killed. If it has images with certain titles, et cetera, all that stuff can be very easily administrated. And in big organizations, human resources departments and tech departments routinely do filter and administrate that stuff and make sure that nothing bad is going on. Well, at the AG's office, even the tech department and the human resources department in this multi-thousand-person organization obviously didn't give a hoot about this stuff, or at least were told not to care about it, or at least gave free passes to everybody, because if you tried to send that stuff, for instance, in the Cumberland County email system, I know for a fact you'd be flagged. In fact, I know I talked to an investigator over there not too long ago who told me, they had problems using the county email system because during child pornography investigations, you have to reference things like the words pornography, and just putting the word pornography in an email can cause problems with email being sent and cause it to be flagged for review, et cetera, et cetera. So it's absolutely ridiculous to believe that this wasn't so ingrained as to be worthy of some kind of punishment. Now, whether Corbett knew or not, Corbett gave a deposition a number of years back, and you can read it online. I could probably find a piece of it and provide it for you. But Corbett said his leadership style is, I didn't know what was going on. This is what his answer was, because he was asked about giving out no-bid contracts. When Corbett was Attorney General, he gave a bunch of Philadelphia law firms no-bid contracts to collect delinquent state taxes. And the no-bid allowed them to keep – it used to be done privately. It used to be done by the Attorney General's office itself. So they closed down that division basically and outsourced it with no-bid contracts to these big Philly firms for 1/3 of the delinquent taxes they could collect. We're talking about billions of dollars worth of contracts. No bid, just gave it to a couple law firms. Imagine that. Do you think maybe they donated to his campaign for governor? Well, there was some litigation, some whistleblower litigation about it by an attorney who worked there who thought this was bad, and there was some federal court action. And Corbett was deposed for about 5 hours, and most of his answers are, I don't remember. When he's asked about not knowing about most of this stuff, this is what he said. He said basically something along the lines of, listen, I'm a military I run it like a military organization, and I put good people in charge of stuff, and I don't pay attention to what they do. And if something goes wrong and it's called to my attention, I fix it. But otherwise, I just assume they're doing their jobs. And his answer was basically, I just let people work underneath me, and I don't know what they're doing. And if they're not doing their jobs, unless somebody calls it to my attention, I don't know. He's kind of an absentee landlord. I don't know if that's how he runs the governor's office or not, but I will find the depot. I'll find the depot for you, and I'll post it on Facebook so you can see the actual language. Yes, Teresa, it is much better now. My headphones aren't driving me crazy either. I've just, getting a little feedback from the guys here about the sound. Anyhow. Oh, okay, here's an interesting question. If you're offended but someone else isn't, who's right? Well, that's a good question. Well, pornography is interesting because somebody posted on my Facebook, for instance, that, of course, you should be offended by pornography. I got a caller here, so let's get the caller on the air. Caller, you're on the air.
Hey, caller, it's Dwayne.
Hey, Dwayne, how are you tonight?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Good. So what's your take on what's going on out here in the wide world?
Oh, it's all screwed up as always. Like you could almost say all systems normal. It's just all screwed up. But this guy running around up there in North State, Pennsylvania, this Eric Fine or whatever he is. they got like they're reporting over 1,000 guys up there looking for this guy, and it's like.